Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, just quick reminder, all session will be recorded and shared afterwards. Feel free to ask questions via chat and vote for the most popular, most interesting question for you. The most popular question will be addressed in our Q&A session, and let's get a good session. Now I'm ready to get flow to our speaker. Let's start with next topic in our today's session, how to do discovery. And please welcome Aliaksei.
All right, thank you. So guys, my name is Aliaksei Bastun, and I'm a lead business analyst with EPAM Systems. And today we're going to talk about discoveries. But before we start, could you please scan this QR code in the top right corner of your screen so I can understand the audience better? While you're doing that, let me give you a quick introduction. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about discoveries and how to prepare and how to do the discovery. And I'm pretty sure that most of you are aware of this project phase and why it's important. And I'm working in digital engagement practice department in EPAM, and for this department, discovery is a common thing, and it's crucial that it's done by experienced business analysts. However, there is a problem how you can get experience without going to discovery, and our big bosses, they are not willing to pay for internship for young BAs. So all I can do is to share my knowledge with you guys and tell you how I'm doing. And the reason why I feel comfortable sharing this information with you is because I've done well, I think maybe seven and a half discoveries for different clients. So let's move on. If you didn't scan the QR code, please do that now. Let's see who we have here. All right. So we have quite interesting audience. There are a lot of strangers in the list. I believe those are not business analysts, but they're willing to know what business analyst needs to do or how I'm doing the discovery. That's cool. Also, I have 13% of junior BAs. This is great, guys. I hope you will enjoy the session and store it for later, because I don't think that you're gonna use this knowledge for I don't know, for a couple of years, but it's better to be prepared when the time comes. And lead BAs, I'm not sure why are you here, but anyway, let's proceed. All right. Thank you, guys. Official agenda, I've already mentioned that actually. So we're going to talk about 3 steps how, to do the discovery. So preparation, driving, wrapping up, and then we can briefly talk about SOW and my discoveries. If we have time, I can share some experience that is from real life. However, the whole presentation is actually built on my experience. The very first step for myself when I'm engaged in a project and I understand that I need to do a discovery, I always try to understand my role. That sounds very primitive, but anyway, I think it's better to discuss everything on the shore before engaging, because the discovery, it can be starting from, well, for example, for DEP projects, for economic projects, it can be from 2 weeks up to 2 months, right? And you're going somewhere, usually before COVID, you're going to the client's office and you're spending a lot of time with your colleagues. So, and all of them have different experience than you. Unfortunately, we don't have stable SWAT teams when you work with the same person on any project, right? So you don't know what to expect from that team. So it's better if you discuss everything, what they know, what they expect from you, and also you can say, I can say that I'm expect from these guys, right? Then I'm trying to understand the discovery squad, and here is the typical discovery squad. Well, obviously, I need a delivery manager in the team, but when I'm doing the discovery, the only role, as I see for the delivery manager, is to manage the client expectation, deal with some politics if it happens, and also do some organizational stuff. Delivery manager can fully rely on me, and I'm gonna capture all requirement. I will find out everything about what we need to do and form the scope of the project. Obviously, there will be an architect. Sometimes it happens when this guy is missing, but it's a huge problem. Architects help you to understand the technical details and have technical conversations with some tech people from the client side, and they help me as well to they create the architecture and drive the conversations that I for example, don't have enough knowledge of. Business analyst, as I said, it can be one business analyst, or it can be two of them, depending on the client and the project size. Actually, I believe it's clear. So we are there to understand the client's needs and capture requirements. Then sometimes, again, on the discovery can UI UX designer be present, and in this case, those guys, if they're not doing a separate discovery, sometimes it happens as well, they usually create visuals, because visuals are always great, and they help to drive the conversation. However, again, the business analyst will play still a key, more I would say, key role in the discovery than UI UX designer, just because in, for example, DEP department, on e-commerce projects, storefront and visuals, right, and user experience, and just half of the project. But then we need to also to build a lot of or automate a lot of business processes for the back office stuff, right, where designer doesn't have exposure to, and they're basically not delivering this part of the project. And you can also see account manager during the discovery. That's a nice guest. Usually those guys organize social meetups with the clients, so you can socialize better, and they kind of do the ice-breaking thing. After that, when everything is clear, just get as much as possible information about the client from your discovery delivery manager. And I also, if, for example, pre-sale team was involved in this engagement, then I'm gonna go to them and request some documentation from them. Usually, they provide a response and a lot of historic data of this pre-sale. However, I only need the response, which contains architecture and scope, right? But again, I'm using it as a FUI, I would say, because scope have tendency to change during the discovery. And this is the main challenge, to understand everything that we need to build and then draw a line for the client, especially when you have the aggressive timelines. So anyway, let's talk about artifact. When you prepare to the discovery, two things that you need to prepare, or I recommend you to prepare, is discovery plan, which is discovery agenda. It consists of a set of meetings or workshops, depending on how I'm planning to drive this discovery. And also, I always prepare a set of meetings or I prepare accompanying materials for those meetings or workshops. So let's talk about the discovery agenda, first item in my list. So on this slide, you can see the typical schedule for e-commerce projects. So don't pay too much attention to the workshops in this schedule. But anyway, so usually discovery agenda has two parts. First one is schedule, which is used by managers, and also it gives you the idea, overall picture of the calendar, right? So here you can have all weeks of your discovery, and then the actual workshop or meetings and their duration. You can also include some lunch breaks or depending on how detailed you want to go. However, here you have two important questions, right, to cover: how to come up with the necessary workshop, and then how to come up with the timing of these workshops. So probably I'm not gonna talk a lot about that, because you guys, I'm assuming, from different domains, and my knowledge of e-commerce will not be relevant to you. But as a blueprint, well, for each domain you can find the common areas, common things that you need to build, and that can be your framework, kind of like an initial set of workshops, and then you need to analyze the client's information, browse the client's website existing, if there is one, right? And to understand something that is unique about this client, and plan to talk about it during the discovery, except for standard topics that you need to cover. And then timings, they really depend on the duration of the discovery. The shorter it is, the shorter, the less time you have for each workshop, and basically need to find this balance somehow. But there is no silver bullet, at least I don't know any. And the second part for the agenda is actually detailed workshop agenda. So it can be, it can look like this. So in the left side of this, this is Excel spreadsheet, right? So you can have the schedule the same as I showed on the previous slide. And then in the middle, basically, I have such fields like the type of the workshop. It can be organizational, just to talk about the project, how like common things. It can be business, it can be UX, it can be technical, depending on what you're gonna discuss during this workshop or the meeting. That's why it's important to include the actual topics. It will help the client, if it's a first engagement with that client, to understand who a client needs to invite to this meeting. And also it helps to those guys who are invited, right, subject matter expert, I would assume, it will help them to prepare to that workshop and give you as much as possible, right, during that meeting. All right. Let's summarize quickly. That was the first step of discovery preparation, and here's the whole discovery action plan for you. So on the preparations tab, I have usually as an input, I have RFP from a pre-sale team, or at least some knowledge about the client who are we engaging with, and the client's information, some documentation. As outputs, I would produce the discovery agenda, and I will prepare workshop materials for at least for 1 week of workshops. And to do that, I usually, in my experience, I usually need at least 1 hour, sorry, not 1 hour, 1 week of before the actual discovery start, right? To prepare everything, to prepare properly to discovery phase. All right, the next thing that we're gonna talk about is driving the discovery. And before I do start talking about that, I would like to pay your attention to the reason why I'm doing these workshops, right? It's to not just to capture requirements or limit the scope or whatever, right? It's to gather the understanding of the business that we're going to work with. Actually, what true business analysts supposed to do is to understand the business and their problems, and then how to solve them. However, over the years, I came to a conclusion that in order to do the proper discovery, you need to have some key skills. And the first one in my list is a sharp mind. And you may wonder what the heck I mean by that, but this is the complex term. I would say it's the way you think. So, for example, if you're if your type of thinking is rather slow, I would say, when you need to, when you need time to digest the information, to see it and slip it over, then probably discovery is not for you, because discovery is all about thinking super fast, asking questions that you have prepared maybe prior to the meeting or not, and then you need to generate super fast new questions. So you need to quickly draw or imagine the whole picture in your head, and listen to the client and understand what they're saying, and actually question everything that they're saying, because it might not be true, or it might not be might be false if you remember the other words from some previous workshop that you had. So basically, during the discovery, you need to have this all information in your head. So it all depends on your kind of size of your memory and hard drive, and how quickly you can get the information from your hard drive. And the last thing, but not the least one, is actually English. And I'm probably say all the time that English is important, and on all of my webinars or whatever, or trainings, I always say English is quite important. So please do learn it. Please watch movies, go to different English courses, whatever. Just when you go to the client, you need to be able to do normal conversations, jokes, and etc. All right. In my experience, there are a lot of ways of driving the workshop. And if you know any other than on the slide, then please specify in comments. Hopefully there will be not too many. But anyway, so for myself, I see following ways to do the discovery. So first one is standard. For me, standard is deck discovery, when you create presentations before the discovery for each workshop. You include questions, assumptions, statements in those slides. And clients actually love that when you have, while driving the discovery, you state something about their business that you were able to find, and basically that gives them hope that this project will be success. Also, sometimes I include some provocative questions into the DAX in order to discuss or start the conversation and maybe change client's mind or adapt the business process if I feel that I need to. The next one is demo. This one is used when I have, for example, a product that we would like client to use for this project. So I'm demoing this product and asking a client for any specifics if something needs to be changed in the solution that we are offering and how. Then the next one is whiteboarding. This is actually the way I would like to try sometime, because currently I feel that I'm not sharp enough to do that. Whiteboarding is when basically you go to the whiteboard, you start drawing, you start writing on the wall, and a client follows you, and you involve them into that activity, and it's not hectic. It's actually perfectly structured. It's really tough to do, but you may want to try that as well. Then stickies. So this is the way when you ask your clients to generate features for the project and to write them on the sticky and then put it on the wall. So after you can review them and came up with project scope. Next one is the interview. That's very simple. Never use that. I'm not a good interviewer, to be honest, but I've seen that done by our UX team, and that was awesome. I admired those guys, how they do that, and that's really great to see them working. And the next one, probably the last one in my list, is feature listing. It's close to a demo, but when you have a product and you have the list of features of particular product that we offering to the client, then like a platform or something, then we have out of the box features listed. So you can go over this list and discuss features, how they need to be changed, and etc. Right? Or some new that should be added to the list, like customization. All right. So during the actual workshop, I follow the following steps, or I do the following. I always mind the time. Time management is a key, so you need to be aware of that. So if people talk, that's great. Don't stop. I never stop organic conversations. I let them speak, but still I mind the time. And if we are running out of time, then I might stop them and go to initial agenda of the workshop. Also in US, because I was doing the discoveries mostly for the US, I announce breaks every half an hour, 1.5, right? Every, I announce 10-15 minutes breaks, right? Also, one important thing that I learned, I always take notes myself. I never trust other people for some reason in the room. And it's not because they are not great professionals. It's just because it's not their job. Like, for example, for SA or UX person or delivery manager, it's not their duty to take notes. So usually they produce something that is, I would say, crappy. But again, it depends on the experience of particular person. Also, I analyze all the time the information on the fly and make conclusions, and then I make clients to disagree or agree with them. That helps me to again to talk some feature through and understand the overall picture better. And one more important thing that I do is I learn my clients during the workshop to understand basically their types. And I have the following classification. I've seen on Discovery site, I've seen a sponsor. This guy usually not present unless you have some problem during Discovery. Not you particularly, not it's can be some escalation, some, I don't know, some politics. So then this guy who pays the money shows up and trying to understand what's going on and how you guys doing. Then obviously you will have subject matter experts. Those are the key people, and I'm looking for those who know everything and who I can work with. Ideally, when it's a couple of people only, then that will be great. Also, I'm looking for decision makers. If they are subject matter experts, then that's awesome. So then you can just work with them. Always, well, not always, but sometimes during on the Discovery, warm bodies can be present. I call them mouth breathers as well. They talk a lot of things, trying to be or smart, I would say something, but they're not experts or not decision makers. So just trying to be polite, I listen and immediately forget whatever they said. Then you can have a product owner, which can combine, can be a subject matter expert and decision maker. But the only like nuance here, hopefully those guys are smart and they're not just proxy product owners between you and the business, right? So that slows things down. If you see them, then you need to somehow carefully to get rid of them. Sometimes I try to do that. Then obviously we'll have the business, that's clear. IT, for example, I'm doing the Discovery. EPAM is trying to win a project, maybe, or have an implementation, but then a client can also have the IT department, right? But EPAM is doing the work. So that's why those guys sometimes may cause some problems for you, because they are thinking that they can also do the stuff that you hired to do. Well, I'm trying to be careful with IT, but it's not always like that. And on my Discoveries, I never seen end customers. All right, we discovered the second step of Discovery. That's basically execution. For inputs, I use the existing website and workshop materials that I prepare on the previous step. And sometimes if mockups are available for the new website that or whatever we need to build, then I'm use those, or they can be produced during the Discovery by UX team. And as outputs, I always produce workshop meeting minutes and action items list that can be resolved during the Discovery if needed, or it can be then transferred to implementation phase, and that can be discussed on daily sync with the client, for example. All right, the third step is basically wrapping up a Discovery, and imagine you doing the workshops. After that, eventually, you need to produce some artifacts, and for me, Obviously, I've already mentioned workshop meeting minutes. That's clear. You need to produce them. Ideally, I try to send meeting minutes like 3 days, maybe, or depending again on the timeline and the schedule of or the overall duration of the discovery phase. But I'm trying to send them right after the workshop, so they can be reviewed and approved by the client. So all mistakes or something that I ever heard, because like my English is not great and the person's accent is horrible, then those mistakes can be eliminated. Again, I mentioned the action item list, that's clear. But the most important thing is basically the feature list, if we're talking about the Agile, which is popular today. And this list can be, feature list can be prioritized, or it should be prioritized. So in feature list, usually I will have something like this, some structure, I mean, like this. Well, for example, functional area, if I need this level, then usually I have epics. I skip this columns for now, and then I have like user stories, like summary, ability to do something, blah blah blah, and some description that I was able to get during the discovery by asking questions or looking at the website, or something that is going to be used by the team to estimate the work, and some assumptions, usually limitations of the scope, some restrictions also can provide here. Also, sometimes if you cannot deliver everything in one single story, you may want to introduce a layer for this feature list, which will, like, layers can be storefront, integration, technical, back office, whatever. It's basically splits the work into, depending on the developers, like back office usually done, or technical stuff is done by backend developers, storefront, front-end developers, right? If they are not full stack. And this one is too specific. I skipped those columns, but they are really too specific for this particular client. This client needed the comparison between the proposal of pre-sale team with the scope that was elaborated after discovery phase. And we needed to compare and show how the estimates were increased and how cost was changed. All right, let's move on. The next thing is SOW. And for this one, we are not particularly, as business analysts, responsible for, but still some of like lead business analysts, for example, or really mature business analysts, they should be aware of and participate in creation of this. So this is basically a contract between the EPAM and the client, right? And business analysts are usually responsible for the scope section. Well, if we already prepare the feature list, that can be included right away into that SOW. And also, I always read the assumptions that are included into SOW, so we are covered, and the scope will be as I described it, and it will not be like hugely increased. Additionally, sometimes there are different types of SOW, right? For example, the one that is created for implementation, the one that is created for discovery, then, and I tie this back to the very first slide. If it's a SOW for discovery, then I obviously need to read it to understand the deliverables that I need to produce during the discovery, and in appropriate, I don't know, maybe format or in the way how client expects them. that will help to like get rid of any problems that can happen after the discovery when client doesn't want to pay, for example, for the discovery. And kind of, it's not my problem, I would say, as business analyst, but still EPAM needs to handle some these cases somehow. All right, and finally, we have the whole overall picture of discovery action plan. It's wrap up, and as I said, as an input, you have workshop meeting minutes, action item list, and I would produce prioritized feature list, which I usually use Moscow technique to do the prioritization. So all features can classified by the client as must, should, could, and would. So that helps to understand how we're gonna progress, how we're gonna deliver stuff, and in which phases. And finally, the SOW with asterisks, because we are partially responsible for some of the things in the SOW. All right. The next thing before we finish, I can talk about my discoveries. So the very first one that I had was in BlackBerry project, and actually I joined this project as a business analyst, and there was a discovery going on, and I was helping hand offshore reading the meeting minutes that produced onshore team, right? So I wasn't part of those meetings, but I had to somehow produce meeting minutes or clean them up. And that was quite an experience, and it improves imagination for sure. However, the real discovery for this client I've done a bit later when I become a lead BA on this project. So I was doing it over the phone. For some reason, sitting in Toronto when the one business person for this discovery was in Seattle. And that time I was doing the question list. I just had the list of questions. I asked them to the ceiling because mics were built into the ceiling. And then someone answered there. So the next project that they have, it's Amway. So on this project, I was playing a second. I was a second player, I would say. I drove just a couple of meetings. The unique thing about this discovery was that on each workshop we had 20 plus people in one room, and there were none of them were decision makers, and none of them were willing to step up. And we needed to somehow get. It was really tough to get the information from them, and it was classical tech discovery. After that, I moved to another project for a new era, for which we've built, EPAM, we've built the greenfield e-commerce solution. So basically, before we came, New Era business was ran by some other vendor, not even New Era. So we took it over and built the e-com for them from scratch, and it is fastest implementation on SAP Hybris so far. So as for discovery, it was a demo discovery because EPAM offered Spark for Hybris accelerator for them to launch really quickly. And that was for North America. And then I've done the gap discovery, showing again the solution that we've built for North America to stakeholders from Mexico and Australia to understand their needs. And for example, in Australia, that time when we've done the discovery, they were running their business in Facebook only. They didn't have a website even. Not talking about warehouse or something like that. So the actual implementation, actual development was took less time than their business to be kind of expanded to do it proper e-commerce, I would say. Then for whole run through, I was doing the again, deck discovery. The nothing special about it, but an interesting thing about it was that discovery phase was actually overlapping with implementation phase. So I had a team of developers starting their sprint and asking me to provide some requirements and write a stories for them so they can work on. But I haven't talked to the client yet, so how can I? But if you face with such issue in your on your project, then think about integrations, right? If there are some, right? Obviously, in each domain you can find typical integrations, like in e-commerce, payment integration with payment providers. So it's easy to ask a client what payment provider they have contract with, they licensed, then development team can start studying the API documentation and build the integration. Then McKesson, not really e-commerce. That one was more of a healthcare, and I was doing the deck demo discovery when demo was done by one person who I had a meeting with. Sometimes we also included two subject matter experts from the business side. But that was so I was doing the meetings, right, with the product owner, and this guy was amazing. I believe he forgot about the legacy solution more than I learned for 2 years being on that project. But again, so that was a different domain for me, and I didn't notice any like different way of how you can do the discovery for healthcare, right? The same thing. And the last one, which is ND8, because I signed it. So it was for a Canadian retailer. And interesting fact about this discovery that it was more of a consulting experience, pure consulting experience. EPAM was involved to do an assessment of the work that is done by another vendor with opportunity to take over. So as EPAM, we did the analysis of technical side of things, how the system is, if it's properly built, whether the platform, e-commerce platform, is appropriately utilized, and also we needed to provide the assessment of each area and its state at that particular moment, to understand whether like it's in red zone or not, and what else needs to be done to go live, and how quickly. And as you can imagine, since the other vendor was involved and it was not clear who's gonna do the rest of the work, it was a lot of politics, and it's kind of tough to do your job when a lot of this politics going on. All right, and I think that's all. Thank you. And let's go and see the questions.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much, Alexei, for great insights. So there are a lot of questions in our chat, and we need to start with most liked questions.
All right.
And the winner is, do you have any interesting discovery failure stories that you could share? So.
Failures?
Yeah.
No, actually, I haven't. I have no such experience. I was lucky, probably, or I don't know. So all discoveries that I've done, they were success. And probably the key is that I delivered the first phases of the project after. So I've done the discovery and I delivered the first phase. So I know all agreements. I know everything that was set. Again, I have a good memory, and this way I was able to manage the client and to make sure that all agreements that were met during the discovery, they still being followed. So I think this is the important thing.
Yeah, actually, we can maybe provide some experience in our discussion also afterwards. So the next question. Actually, what's your favorite workshop facilitation technique? So what is the best way to engage all participants in your workshops? What do you mean?
So I think so basically my go-to way of doing the discovery is deck discovery. So I always prepare some slides. So I bring the structure to the actual workshop, and sometimes I'm trying to do some maybe a bit of for example, if it's a gap discovery and we need to understand what is built and then assess the particular areas and to find some problems, then I try to use some kind of a gamification technique, I would say. So I ask business to put like smiles towards particular workshop topics, so we can see where the most problem can be, and if we need to spend time more talking about this particular topic, like for example, we talk about the products and all that is related to the product, right? And clients indicates that there is a problem in pricing, so we need to then talk about it more. But eventually, as I was saying during the actual presentation, eventually I would like to be as experienced so I can do the whiteboarding. I can have everything in my head and just involve the client this way. Because I've seen a guy doing that, and I was amazed how confident he was and the effect he had on the client. So I want to be like that guy.
Good. So actually we have a lot of facilitation technique and we can use from Manage 3.0 as well. And the next question, what if the discovery team is small and doesn't include designer or architect? Should BA do all that stuff, all that work?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the way I think business analyst should know everything, because business analyst is mediator between all parties, client and the development team. And again, I think that BA should know everything and know as much as possible in technical field as well. Because imagine, again, you have a product owner, right? You're a business analyst and you have a product owner who is just proxy, and he can go or she can go to the business, ask the question you've asked, and then bring you answer without digesting it or maybe analyzing it, and so basically being a proxy. You don't want to be the person like that, right? So if client asks something technical, you need to be able either to support a conversation or to answer right away. Or if it's a really tough question, you can give some details and then go to the architect or development and discuss with them. But again, not just bring the information back and forth. You need to be able, again, to be a valuable part in this conversation or setup.
Yeah, so skill up and just do it.
Again, full stack. We need to be also full stack.
And the next one may be a little bit tricky, but maybe not. Hi, what advice would you give to yourself preparing to the very first discovery? So imagine and look back. Your first discovery and your advice.
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember what I thought at the time, but anyway, I think planning is the key. If you plan properly, every workshop or the meeting you will have, and you will understand what you need to do on that particular meeting. Again, either you will have the questions list, or you will understand the who's going to drive this workshop, or then it's going to be easier again to do the actual workshop with the client. Also, again, prepare something that client can look at, and it will give them perception that, again, you know what you're doing, and there can be a structure that can be followed during the workshop. And also, again, one more thing. Try to find out as much as possible beforehand, so that way you can process all the information, all documentation maybe, or look at the website, and even already built everything, already came up with the project scope, so you can go to the client and just present what you have. Mm-hmm.
So the next question, Alexei, we have a lot of maybe tricky question today.
Sure.
And yeah, it's not simply. So we have the next question. And how you handle a situation where you do not get any decision from business and you need to make a decision on your own? What are the points you need to keep in mind? So when you are decision maker.
Sometimes it happens, and I like making decisions instead of the client. But you need to be sure that you're comfortable doing that. You know what I'm doing, and you can hold that responsibility that comes with those decisions, and you can actually again. You can try to poke the potential decision maker as much as possible, try to scare them with consequences, bring those arguments why you need this decision, and finally you can make it and offer them to deal with consequences, right? I would say it's better to be to do it right how you decided to do it and then apologize for that, than not do it. So
yeah. So the next one, you mentioned that project scope changed greatly during the discovery compared to pre-sale. Is the same true for the development phase compared to the discovery result? How greatly changes the scope? Were you ever blamed for having discovering wrong scope? So it's maybe about scope creep or not proper. What were your excuses if yes? It's again about fail.
Let me think about it. Yes, definitely can happen, and the scope can increase during the development phase as well. And yes, I was blamed, but usually not by the client, because I don't know. Sometimes they can blame, but it's I don't know. It's self-blaming comparing to the development team that can blame you because you write the requirements and you actually pushing them to do more and more and deliver more stuff. First thing that you need to somehow live with that, right? And remember that you delivering a product for client and they actually need it. So scope cannot change just because changes or just because someone wants it. There is a reason behind it, and if you understand this reason, you can explain to everyone why it happened and why we need to deliver that. That's one side of the story. But if we talk about the client, then I had a pretty maybe ugly experience in my life. Then when the client wanted like to build a lot of stuff or include them into MVP phase, but the number of capacity of the development team was known. It was clearly established, like velocity of the development team, and it was clear how much we're going to deliver for this period of time for MVP, right? And I was really pushing really hard. I was probably I even felt that I crossed that line in relation between client and just a vendor. So I was really pushing them hard, but I had a backup in behind me. It was manager from the client side. So if you have good allies, then you're covered.
Yeah, so it's about estimation. And guys, we are running out of the time. Thank you for interesting question, productive session, interesting topic. See you next session, and vote for our speaker Aliaksei, and I will share the link to this discussion. You can find any answers, you can find questions, and actually you can proceed with discussion in our discussion panel on that platform. So, and I actually need to say that we will have recording and it also will be posted. So, and be active participant, ask question and get your prize. Thank you.
Thank you, and reach out to me if you have questions.